Thank you, everyone. Please have a seat. If you are satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant caused the death of Lynn Hernan with the intent to kill, you should find the defendant guilty of first-degree intentional homicide. If you are not so satisfied, you must find the defendant not guilty.
Lynn Hernan's not here to tell you what went on.
We were dispatched to a suicide. A female had located her friend deceased in a residence.
It was immediately obvious that the decedent was there in a recliner. She has multiple medication bottles that are within arm's reach. She has multiple medications that are kind of scattered on her carpet, and this appears to be an unknown powdery substance left behind on a plate.
I received a witness statement from Jesse. From what I knew, Jesse was the caretaker of the individual.
Jesse Krzyzewski took care of Lynn during the last year of Lynn's life. Jesse was like an adopted daughter to Lynn, so Jesse and Lynn were very close.
Lynn was really sick and depressed.
Lynn started suffering from health issues that were unexplained. She was going in and out of the hospital, but doctors couldn't figure out what it was that was ailing Lynn.
She was going to like doctor after doctor, and then she'd call me and say they can't find anything wrong with me.
The defense argued that Lynn wanted to die by suicide because she was sick of being sick.
I remember hearing it from Jesse on the phone. Looks like Lynn, committed suicide.
When you heard your Auntie Lenny died by suicide, did you believe that?
I wasn't really sure at the time what to believe because, I just couldn't see her, ending her own life.
She wants to die. She doesn't like life.
The speculation at the time on law enforcement's behalf was that this was clearly a suicide.
You received information from the medical examiner. Did that cause the sheriff's office to change their investigation?
Yes.
There was a substance that was unusual.
The medical examiner found tetrahydrozoline in Lynn Hernan's system. It's the active ingredient in eye drops that, when ingested, can be fatal.
My opinion is that Lynn Hernan died of tetrahydrozoline poisoning.
What about the manner of death in this case?
It's homicide.
What killed her is the eye drops.
Are you serious? Do you guys think I murdered her?
Did you?
I swear to God I didn't.
In June of 2021, Jesse Krzyzewski was charged with first-degree intentional homicide. The state argued that Lynn Hernan was worth more dead than alive to Jesse Krzyzewski.
You're going to see that the access Ms. Krzyzewski had to Lynn Hernan allowed her to steal every dollar almost that Lynn Hernan was worth in life.
Lynn gave Jesse money all the time because she wanted to. She wanted Jesse to have it.
And this is not a suicide. This was intentional homicide.
Lynn loved Jesse. If Lynn Hernan was here today, she would say, "Are you crazy?" Prosecution. Jesse's innocent.
This case must be decided by you, the jurors, based on the evidence presented in the courtroom. You, jurors, are the judges of the credibility of the witnesses and the weight of the evidence.
In October of 2023, in the courtroom of Judge Jennifer Doro, 39-year-old Jesse Krzyzewski went on trial for the intentional homicide of 62-year-old Lynn Hernan. along with 2 counts of felony theft for stealing from Lynn, someone who'd always thought of Jesse as a beloved friend. 5 years earlier, Jesse called police and told them she found Lynn dead, sitting in her recliner in the living room of her Pewaukee, Wisconsin condo. Jesse had been taking care of Lynn, who had serious medical problems.
The lawyers will now make their opening statements.
Good afternoon, everyone.
The prosecutors for Waukesha County are Deputy District Attorney Abby Nicolai and Assistant District Attorneys J.J. Crawford and Randy Sitzberger.
So this is Wisconsin versus Jesse Krzyzewski. Said otherwise, this is a case of murder, greed, and lies. You're going to see that in or about October 3rd, 2018, Lynn Hernon became worth more dead than alive to Jesse Krzyzewski.
Prosecutors told the jury that this case was about someone who wanted money.
Stephanie Rodriguez covered the trial for the CBS affiliate in Milwaukee.
And prosecutors said that that's why she was caring for her, not because she genuinely cared, but that Jesse wanted the money in her bank account.
Between January of 16 and October 3rd of 2018, Ms. Krzyzewski was able to steal $144,000 plus from Lynn Hernon while she was still alive.
And then she wanted Lynn dead to get the money from her estate.
Lynn Hernon was dead at only 62 years old from a tetrahydrozoline poisoning after the defendant gave her a bottle laced with Visine eye drops to drink.
But the defense presented Jesse as a close friend who took care of Lynn, who they claimed was depressed about her declining health.
This case is extremely important to Jesse. Presumed innocent. And don't ever let that thought leave your mind, that she's presumed innocent.
At trial, Jesse was represented by defense attorneys Pablo Galaviz and Donna Kugler.
Here's a picture of Lynn and Jesse, a graduation party that Lynn threw for Jesse, high school.
At the mention of her close relationship with Lynn,
this is my daughter, she's so proud.
Jesse immediately teared up.
That's who Jesse is to Lynn, her daughter.
Jesse had known Lynn since childhood through her mother, Jennifer Flower.
Jennifer's like her best friend, and Jesse became her best friend.
Lynn, who worked most of her life as a hairdresser, never married and lived alone. Then, in the 2 years before her death, her health rapidly declined.
There were times where Lynn would fall in her home and Jesse would have to go and help her get up.
Lynn also had lung disease, high blood pressure, and severe gastrointestinal issues, which doctors were never able to fully diagnose. She had been in and out of the hospital several times in the year before she died.
Jesse was always with Lynn because she became her full-time caretaker, essentially. Jesse would do the grocery shopping for Lynn. Jesse paid Lynn's bills.
Jesse was the only person she trusted.
The defense told the jury that as Lynn's health further deteriorated, she became despondent.
And you saw the way she was done up with the hair and nails and jewelry. She didn't look like that anymore. She didn't want any more visitors because she didn't look, in her mind, the same.
The defense argued that on October 3rd of 2018, Lynn was tired of being sick and decided to take her own life.
When they arrived on the scene, this is what they found at the scene. They found a lot of empty prescription bottles. And they can't see that as a suicide? She's innocent. Find her not guilty.
One of the first orders of business for prosecutors,
The state would next call Tabitha Kukis.
was to establish the cause of death. Former Waukesha County Deputy Medical Examiner Tabitha Kukis talked to jurors about those pictures she took when she arrived at Lynn's condo.
This is a close-up of the medication bottles that were directly to her left. There's additional medications that are present, some without their caps on.
Kukis had photographed multiple medications scattered on the carpet, as well as a white powder on a plate and on Hernon's chest. Defense attorney Kugler suggests the powder was spilled by Lynn herself.
Jesse told you it was common for Lynn to crush medications because of her problem swallowing.
That's what she told me.
Jurors heard from Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Linda Biedritsky, who testified about those photos taken in Lynn's living room. She said the pills and powder scattered at the scene did point to a potential suicide.
There was a thought that maybe there was an ingestion was a possibility for the cause of death.
But before pronouncing the cause of death, Dr. Biedritsky waited to see the results from the toxicology tests. When she received them weeks later, she was in for a surprise.
There was a substance that I was an unusual finding that I hadn't seen in a report from their facility before. It was called tetrahydrozoline.
Dr. Biedritsky began her own research on tetrahydrozoline, a drug found in some over-the-counter eye drops.
This is a substance that I haven't seen in a toxicology report before. It's not supposed to be in the blood.
But how did it get there?
Dr. Biedritsky, were you involved in the cause of death and manner determination for Lynn Hernan?
Yes.
Medical examiner Dr. Linda Biedritsky told the jury it was in late September 2019, almost a year after Lynn Hernan's death, that she published her official conclusion about how Lynn died.
The cause of death I determined was tetrahydrozoline poisoning.
And Dr. Biedritsky ruled that Lynn did not deliberately drink a fatal dose of eye drops.
How this injury occurred is that she was given tetrahydrozoline by another, which is why I called it a homicide.
The belief that Lynn Hernan was given tetrahydrozoline by another shows that she was given this unsuspectingly. She didn't know that she was ingesting tetrahydrozoline when she did it.
The defense challenged the medical examiner's findings.
These are all the drugs that were found in Ms. Hernan, right?
Correct.
Toxicology reports showed that Lynn had at least 8 prescription drugs in her system, some of which Lynn was not supposed to be taking at the time because those medications had been discontinued by Lynn's doctors.
And these were all in her blood, which means they've already been ingested and made it into the bloodstream.
True.
Dr. Biedritsky said that in her determination, those medications, along with some of Lynn's medical conditions, contributed to but did not cause Lynn's death.
The medications found in Lynn's body were all at therapeutic levels.
Your conclusion was that she died from the tetrahydrozoline, right?
Yes.
But the defense asked, how could the medical examiner be so certain Lynn did not ingest the eye drops on her own?
You don't know, as you sit there today, whether she voluntarily ingested that.
It was my opinion she didn't, but knowledge of her action, no.
Well, you weren't there.
I wasn't there.
On redirect, Deputy DA Nikolai asked about the powder found on and near Lynn's body.
What do you think happened?
I think that they may have been deposited there.
The medical examiner believed that Lynn Hernan's body was staged to look like an overdose because toxicology reports showed that none of the crushed up medication that was found on Lynn Hernan and next to her was actually in her system.
The following day,
State may call your next witness.
the jury heard from some of Lynn's friends.
Did you know Lynn Hernan?
Yes, I did.
Jim Kelleher met Lynn at a music festival in 1983 when she was 27.
What was your first impression?
That lady that looked that good wouldn't go out with me.
But Lynn said yes, and their romantic relationship lasted 10 years. Even after it ended, they remained close friends.
Lynn was a beautiful lady. Inside and out, she was beautiful.
Jim says he never met Jessie until right after Lynn died.
I get a phone call from Jessie, and she says, I have some bad news. Lynn committed suicide. And by the way, we're going to have a dinner for her on the 13th at the Open Flame restaurant.
She said, in one sentence,
Correct.
Your dear friend died by suicide.
Right.
The next sentence, she tells you there's going to be a dinner in her memory.
Right.
What did you make of that?
Well, I kind of didn't believe her right off the bat. She wasn't crying.
On the stand, Jim said he didn't believe Lynn would have taken her own life.
Did you ever hear Lynn say anything to you about thinking of killing herself?
No, I did not. She never gave me the indication of suicidal. Never.
He said that despite her growing frustration with her health problems, Lynn would still visit him and his girlfriend at their home.
So she'd bring treats and stuff. She would say she'd have stomach aches or whatever, and she would always leave.
But the defense questioned whether Jim really knew much about Lynn's health struggles. In the last year of Lynn's life, she'd been in and out of the hospital, discharged the final time just 5 days before her death.
Did you offer to go over there and take care of our cat when she was in the hospital?
No, I did not.
You didn't go visit her when she...
No, I did not.
Prosecutors also called Corrine Poza.
We were best friends for about 35 plus years.
And Corrine's son, Anthony, who says he always had a special bond with Lynn since childhood.
What did you call Lynn?
Auntie Lenny.
Anthony says he stayed close to Lynn, regularly dropping by her condo while he attended college nearby.
I loved doing stuff with her, thrift store shopping. That was a date we would go on, is go thrift store shopping.
Do you recall when the last conversation you had with Lynn was?
The last time I saw Lynn was a month before she passed away.
Anthony testified that despite her medical troubles, Lynn appeared to be improving.
She said she was starting to feel better, and she's like, I'm fine, I'm glad I'm getting out again, and we need to do this more often.
Prosecutors asked Waukesha County Sheriff's Detective Chris Cole about his investigation into Lynn's death.
Did you speak with Ms. Krzyzewski in regard to this death investigation?
Yes. She contacted our office looking for an update.
Prosecutors introduced video of that meeting with Detective Cole. He testified that 5 months after Lynn died, before the medical examiner had ruled on the cause of death, Jessie came to the sheriff's department with her mother, Jennifer Flower, asking questions.
When I talked to the medical examiner last, I talked to them numerous times, and they said I had to contact you guys. They kind of weren't sure. We didn't know if it was a suicide or if it was something medical.
So at this point, they're waiting for their secondary, the confirming test.
Yeah.
During that interview, Detective Cole found out more about Jessie's relationship with Lynn.
So she was like an aunt, a second mom to me. She didn't have kids.
You've known her your whole life. Yeah. And that's why you were helping her out.
Yeah.
Jessie said she was just about the only person still in Lynn's life before she died.
She pretty much flew everybody off the hospital at the end. She said, no, I don't want to see anybody.
According to Jessie and her mother, Lynn was so withdrawn she did not want to talk to her friend Jim when he called.
She said, do not tell him I don't want him here. I don't want to see him. She didn't like the way she looked, so she didn't want people around.
But that's not how Jim remembers what happened when he and his girlfriend called Lynn's number.
Well, this girl answered the phone, and she was kind of mouthing off to us. Don't use this phone. Don't call this number ever again. Don't worry about Lynn.
And you're thinking what?
I'm going to find out from Lynn what's going on.
A few days later, Jim says Lynn called him from the hospital, and they agreed to make plans to get together when she went home.
And that's the last time that I heard Lynn's voice.
As they tried to make sense of her death, Lynn's friends say they recalled Lynn talking about something else that was troubling her, something that had nothing to do with her health.
She would talk about her money. It's disappearing.
She just said, I don't know what's happening to my money.
How do you think Lynn Hernan died? Chat now with the 48 Hours team on Facebook and X.
Did Ms. Krzyzewski tell you who would be in charge of handling Lynn's estate?
Yeah, she said she was appointed power of attorney.
Okay.
As the prosecution turned to the charges that Jessie stole money from Lynn, they asked Anthony Poza about his communications with Jessie and the months after Lynn's death.
I would just check up with Jessie every once in a while via text and ask her if she needed any help.
Lynn left a will she had drawn up in 2016, which named Jessie as personal representative, Wisconsin's equivalent of an executor. Jessie and Anthony were co-beneficiaries. When Jessie sent Anthony some paperwork of accounts she was settling,
I just remember getting a final account with just a bunch of credit card bills.
he was surprised at the amount of money Lynn appeared to owe.
And it was just weird how she had all these debts that just didn't make any sense to me.
Lynn's friends remembered her as living paycheck to paycheck until 2014, when she inherited $250,000 after her mother died. Now, after Lynn's death, Jessie reported to Anthony that most of Lynn's assets had been eaten away by debt.
I just felt like something was up and I wanted it looked at more closely.
The jury next heard from someone who was looking more closely.
You went through all these financial accounts sort of line by line, is that correct?
Yes.
Detective Nathan Plennis testified about the investigation into Lynn's finances. Prosecutors alleged Jessie stole more than $200,000 from Lynn before and after she died. And in the course of their investigation, detectives discovered a bombshell. Jessie Krzyzewski had a criminal record. Back in 2011, Jessie was convicted on charges of identity theft and forgery and sentenced to 8 years. Jessie had been released from prison early in 2016 on extended supervision, which coincided with the time Lynn's health began to decline.
Can you just scroll down to page 3?
Plennis told jurors what he learned about Lynn Hernan's bank accounts. He testified that Lynn's money market account, which had around $250,000 in 2016, was down to only $87 just after she died. A fraction of the total was spent by Lynn on a Jeep and some jewelry. Almost everything else, including a total of 20 checks,
$9,135.62.
went to Jessie Krzyzewski.
2 checks, March 13th, $7,330.80, $9,416.
Jessie was accused of stealing from Lynn because she was getting 20 checks out of Lynn Hernan's account with varying things in the memo notes like IRS payment, car payment.
Stephanie Rodriguez covered the trial for the CBS affiliate in Milwaukee.
But none of the money was going to the places where Lynn supposedly intended for them to go.
Plennis described to the jury how he matched each of those checks to deposits in Jessie's accounts and then tracked where Jessie spent that money. There was a big spike in spending while Lynn was in the hospital 2 weeks before she died.
During her last hospital stay, money was being transferred from Lynn's account into Jessie's account, and then Jessie was withdrawing that money from ATMs at a local casino.
Plennis also testified that on the day that Lynn died, a JCPenney credit card was opened in Lynn's name. Just days later, a $3,000 purchase of furniture made on another credit card in Lynn's name was delivered to the home Jessie shared with Scott Craig.
Mr. Craig, how is it you know Ms. Krzyzewski?
We were boyfriend and girlfriend for 3.5 years.
What was it that happened in the summer of 2019 that caused that end to the relationship?
When Waukesha Sheriff's Department came to my house and took her away.
Jessie was arrested for potentially violating the terms of her supervised release on those identity theft and fraud charges.
This is the initial interview that was conducted with Ms. Krzyzewski once the warrants were conducted on July 9th.
Detective Aaron Hoppy, the lead investigator in the case, and Detective Chris Cole interviewed Jessie. Hoppy watched portions of that interview along with the jurors.
Typically, would you go there the morning or the night? Or
I didn't have a set. It just depended how she was doing the day before.
Following up on their suspicions that Jessie had been stealing from Lynn, Detective Chris Cole gave her a chance to explain. She claimed Lynn had been paying her for helping at home.
It was all
did you have
different.
an official arrangement that I makes $20 an hour?
No, there was nothing. No, nothing like that. I mean, there was no, one day, oh, here's the check, one day, here's my card, go get this, one day, I mean, it was no set.
No set amount?
No. I mean, she'd help out, or she'd help my mom, oh, this month I'm going to pay rent, or I'm going to pay your car.
Jurors watched as Detective Cole, for the first time, shared Lynn's autopsy results with Jesse.
There's an anomaly in her toxicology. There's a drug in her system that's not supposed to be there.
What would that be?
It's called tetrahydrazine.
What is that?
Commonly known as eye drops.
She uses eye drops all the time.
What does she use them for?
She uses them for her eyes. She put them in her eyes all the time.
What killed her is the eye drops.
Are you serious?
In the interview, Detective Cole told Jesse that the medical examiner thought someone gave the eye drops to Lynn orally in an attempt to kill her.
Do you guys think I murdered her?
Did you?
I swear to God, I didn't.
You seem to have the most to gain on this.
I have no reason to murder her. I didn't give her anything. I didn't give her this eye drop or whatever it's called.
But detectives say Jesse knew all about tetrahydrozoline. She told her boyfriend Scott in text messages someone had put it in her drink when she was at a bar about 3 months after Lynn's death. Detective Hoppy read the texts in court.
Jesse to Scott. Scott, I don't feel good.
Scott told detectives that Jesse said she went to the hospital.
They said my blood pressure is really bad. I have traces of tetrahydrozoline in my blood. The doctor said that's the main ingredient in eye drops. He said that people put it in people's drinks all the time. He said there's no taste to it and people don't notice.
Jesse also tells Scott in those text messages that people can die from tetrahydrozoline poisoning.
Detective Hoppy, I think you testified you spoke again with Ms. Krzyzewski.
That's right.
On day 9 of the trial, the jury watched video of another interview between Jesse and detectives. This one took place the day after she was arrested on that parole hold. She had asked to speak to detectives again.
I was up all night long trying to think of everything and anything. I was thinking of the Visines.
After spending her first night in jail, Jesse's clothing had changed, and so had her story. Right after her arrest, Jesse had told detectives that Lynn used eye drops for dry eyes. Now, Jesse told Detective Hoppy that Lynn had another use for it.
She was drinking vodka and Visine.
During the second day of interviews with detectives, the jury heard Jesse tell them that Lynn did drink Visine.
How do you know she had mixed Visine with her vodka?
Because that's what she did. She's done it about 3 times.
Why didn't you tell us that yesterday?
Because I didn't want to tell you guys, because you guys are making it sound like it happened the day of, and that's not when she was doing that.
But Jesse says she never gave Lynn Hernan any Visine.
She never put the vodka in her Visine.
Never.
So she put Visine in her vodka.
Then Jesse went further.
Jesse goes into detail about how Lynn wanted to die by suicide, that Lynn was using the eye drops to help her die by suicide.
She was looking for her way out.
Jesse vehemently denied helping Lynn die.
I never mixed it. I swear to God, I bought it for her, and I knew she was mixing it. She put it in her water once in a while and in her vodka once in a while.
The following day, Jesse asked to speak with the detectives yet again, the third time in 3 days. The jury watched as Jesse had a new revelation for the investigators.
Jesse tells detectives that Lynn would get a buzz off of drinking Visine.
She said she lost, feeling of her body. It made her feel good. And honestly, she was doing it for so long that I didn't think she was going to die from it. I really didn't. I thought, okay, she's getting some sleep from it, that's it. She was doing it for 2 months at least.
Doing what?
The Visine.
And Jesse now said that Lynn actually did drink Visine the day she died. Jesse claimed that when she visited Lynn that morning, Jesse knew that Lynn had poured 6 bottles of Visine into her own water bottle.
That bottle of water right there had it in 6 Visines. I didn't put it in. I gave her the bottle of water.
Which is the one you know has 6 bottles of Visine in it. Because she told you. And you give it to her.
Well, we argued about it.
Jesse said she spent 10 minutes trying to stop Lynn.
She said, no, I want that bottle of water. It'll put me to sleep.
And then you gave in.
Yep. It's her choice and what she wanted.
And then you left.
Yep.
Hours later, detectives alleged Jesse opened that JCPenney card in Lynn's name and went grocery shopping.
I didn't do it to her, though. I didn't.
Jesse?
It would be 23 months later that Jesse Krzyzewski was charged with Lynn's death.
Does the state have any other witnesses to call?
No, the state rests.
When it was the defense's turn, Jesse's attorneys focused almost solely on their claim that Lynn died by suicide by drinking Visine.
We would call Gary Verdon.
Verdon, a friend of Jesse's mother,
Call her Jenny or Jennifer.
I call her Jenny.
said he'd been in Lynn's condo twice, the second time about a year before her death. Yet his memory of the visit was clear.
I saw him always sitting in his chair with a table next to her. She had white Slurpee cup, with a straw coming out of it. She had a bottle of vodka next to it. She had an ashtray, her cigarettes, and a bottle of Visine.
You sure it's Visine?
Yes.
Verdon testified that on another occasion, he heard Lynn on speakerphone when he visited Jesse's mother, Jennifer.
Well, Lynn just started rambling off, and she was either sleepy or tired or whatever. And she was rattling off about the will. Then she started talking about how she wanted to kill herself.
Defense calls Sarah Trump.
Sarah Trump is a nurse practitioner who began treating Lynn for back pain in 2017. Despite prescribing several pain medications for her, Trump said Lynn did not improve.
In 2018, January, she continues to complain about her back pain.
Yes.
The pain being worsening, correct?
Yes.
Forensic pathologist Dr. Lindsay Thomas was hired by the defense.
I would say her past medical history was very significant. She had a very long list of medical conditions and also had quite a few psychiatric disorders: depression, anxiety, agoraphobia, which is fear of public places, chronic insomnia. Those were the ones that were listed in her medical records.
Dr. Thomas testified she agreed with the state's conclusion that Lynn's medical problems contributed to her death. She did not agree with the state's finding that Lynn died from tetrahydrozoline poisoning.
The forensic pathologist that the defense brought up said that Lynn's cause of death was undetermined, but she believed it was mixed drug toxicity. And so that means she thought that it was a combination of all of the drugs found in Lynn's system.
Would you say that there is strong evidence here that Lynn Hernan's death was a suicide?
I would say there's strong evidence that certainly could have been a suicide, yes.
As the defense concluded, Judge Jennifer Duro asked Jesse if she'd be taking the stand.
What is that decision?
It was very hard for me to decide, but ultimately I will not be testifying.
Madam Reporter, you're...
In her closing argument,
Ms. Krzyzewski's intent is clear. It was to kill.
Deputy District Attorney Abby Nikolai said Jesse had just one motive: money.
And the motive is her own personal benefit. This is someone who has profited over $144,000 before death and over $80,000 after.
In her closing,
The state has not proven a first-degree intentional homicide.
defense attorney Donna Kukler maintained that Lynn took her own life.
Jesse knew that Lynn would take Visine, drink it, but she doesn't know how she died that day. Looked like a suicide with pills from a person who was unhappy.
As for the allegations that Jesse stole from Lynn,
Lynn gave Jesse money all the time because she wanted to.
the defense contended that Lynn gave Jesse the money because Lynn knew she was going to end her own life.
She wanted Jesse to have it. She knows she's going out, and Lynn made a decision. She made a decision that she was going to exit. And she did that. on October 3rd, once Jesse had left the home.
Attorney Nicolai, when you're ready.
In its rebuttal, the prosecution pushed back.
To believe that this was a suicide, you would have to believe that by the most cosmic intervention in the entire world, it happened at the exact point in time when Ms. Krzyzewski maximized the amount of money that she made on this whole ordeal.
The jury deliberated for 7 hours the first day, but did not reach a verdict.
Verdict watch for this case was tense. When the jury began to deliberate into a second day, there was some wonder.
That's when I got worried. I was wondering what, I'm like, what's the holdup?
Go behind the scenes with the 48 Hours Postmortem Podcast.
Madam Foreperson, has the jury reached their verdicts?
Yes, Your Honor.
On November 14th of 2023, after 10 and a half hours of deliberation, Jesse Krzyzewski steadied herself as Judge Jennifer Doro read the jury's verdicts.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Jesse R. Krzyzewski, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide.
Jesse broke down as the judge continued.
Jesse was crying uncontrollably.
Krzyzewski was also convicted on the 2 counts of felony theft for stealing money from Lynn before and after she died.
I was just overcome with emotion. It also makes you reflect on the last 5 years with the lies and the deceit.
But before sentencing, the case took a bizarre turn when an envelope containing 37 pages of these handwritten letters and documents was received by a friend of Jesse's, who then turned it over to the sheriff's department.
The letter requests a friend of Jesse to fake evidence, create a voice recording, pretending to be Lynn Hernan, to send all of this to the judge in this case, to local media, even to the governor, to try to prove Jesse's innocence.
Prosecutors said the documents were written by Krzyzewski on the back of her trial notes, giving directions to her friend on how to impersonate Lynn and fabricate materials and submit them to the court. Krzyzewski allegedly asked her friend to, quote, make a voice tape pretending to be Lynn, writing, she has an older, raspy female voice. Krzyzewski allegedly directed her friend to say, quote, I cannot go on anymore. I chose to drink Visine and end my life. Jesse denied writing the documents, and the sheriff's department began an investigation into their origin. And the results of that investigation were revealed on April 5th, 2024, when Krzyzewski was back in Judge Doro's court for sentencing.
All right.
Prosecutors played video recorded in Krzyzewski's bunk room at the Waukesha County Jail, a few days before those documents were turned over to authorities.
So what I'm playing is jail video from Ms. Krzyzewski's pod.
They said it showed Krzyzewski putting papers into an envelope, leaving it on the bed of another inmate who later takes it to a mail drop-off. The prosecution said this proved Krzyzewski wrote those documents.
Ms. Krzyzewski, this is your opportunity to address the court. What, if anything, would you like to say?
Krzyzewski again denied she was the author of those documents. She spent almost 2 hours without a break proclaiming her innocence, insisting the only thing she was guilty of was being a loyal friend.
Let's be very clear here. There was no murder. I did not commit murder. I did not poison Lynn, give her pills, or anything else. It is a lot to be accused and convicted of murder when I didn't do it. You're holding me responsible for what she did.
Judge Doro said she believed Lynn's death was premeditated.
Tetrahydrozoline was not something we expected to find. And I do believe it was something you, Ms. Krzyzewski, banked on no one testing for. I have to ask out loud. It's a rhetorical question, but were you poisoning Lynn Hernan all along? following your release from prison?
No.
I'm not asking for an answer. This is my time. So do not interrupt me.
Kershesky was sentenced to life in prison on the intentional homicide charge and 10 years for the 2 theft charges. The soonest she could be paroled would be after 40 years, when she would be nearly 80 years old.
Jesse poisoned Lynn like she was a rodent.
Lynn Hernan's friend, Jim Kelleher, had a few final words for Lynn's killer.
The devil awaits you. I hope you rot in hell. Lynn Hernan is an angel in heaven. May you rest in peace, Lynn. You're dearly missed and always will be. I'm so very sorry. God bless.
A beautiful heart, a gentle, gentle spirit.
A woman found dying from a gunshot wound, crime scene evidence that doesn't add up.
There's definitely mysteries involved in this case.
Then prosecutors take a creative approach.
A psychological autopsy.
48 Hours, Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.